Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you're here the first time. My name is Marty. As promised in my last video, you will now also get a video about books that I did not like, even though they're really popular somewhere. I don't have a long list here, mostly because I stopped reading books that I knew I wouldn't like or that I suspected I wouldn't like ages ago. I have once more decided to include several genres, mostly YA and classics. Yes, I will show you classics that I didn't like, which I don't know if it's a good idea because maybe it will just show that I don't understand classics. Nonetheless, I think it's important to also say that sometimes you just don't like a book even if it's been popular for 100 years or more, because we don't all have the same taste and sometimes books get popular that I just don't get. If there's anything you disagree with me here, that is fine. We all have our own opinion, and we all have our own reading taste. You might see a theme here of things that I really hate. So let's get into it. The first book is the book that kind of started this video, if we're being honest, because a friend of mine is reading it right now, and she sent me pages. And I just remember how much I hated that book. And I remembered it so much that I went back to Goodreads, because back then I gave it 2 stars. Because I was scared of giving books 1 star if they were popular, because if everyone likes them, then there has to be something, and I just didn't understand it. But these days, I'm absolutely fine with not liking a book. So I went back and gave it 1 star. That book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I'm so lucky that I got it for free on Amazon Prime back then, because there used to be this thing where you could get books for free, and I don't do that anymore because these days I have the money to actually buy books. But I got it as a Kindle version on my phone because I was traveling with my bike at the time, meaning I didn't want to take an entire book with me. It would have taken up too much space. So that's why I got it, and that's why I also read it completely and didn't DNF it, because I didn't have anything else with me, so that was all I had. It was bad. Essentially, The Cruel Prince is a story of a girl, Jude, whose parents are killed, and so her sister and she get taken in by fairies, and they are human. So they're the only humans there. They get educated with the other fairies, but they are always the outsiders. And then there is, I forgot his name, but it's the prince, who is in the same class, in the same school year as Jude, and he despises her to a point where he physically attacks her. Now, this is an enemies to lovers romance, allegedly. First book, it's a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see how that could end up in a romance. And if it does, it is not a romance that I would want to read, because it's more of an abuse story with, like, romanticizing the abuse. Because it won't talk, I suspect, about how toxic and unhealthy such a relationship is, where one person has already physically attacked another. Also, he's got a tail. I forgot about that part until my friend sent me a photo of the text. He's got a tail. I think that's where I should have stopped reading, really. It was so bad. It was really trashy. I think this is where the quote Jude, 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 Jude comes from, that everyone seems to like. I don't think that's a good quote. I think that's so stupid. With enemies to lovers, you have to kind of find the line between someone that just is mean, or is maybe a huge rival or something, and someone that actively hurts another person. Or like a romance of 2 people from kingdoms that are at war, versus a romance of 2 people that have actively brought harm to each other. There is such a huge difference between a good enemies to lovers romance and the romance that's just abuse. And this was just abuse, honestly. There's one thing at the end where Jude does something that I liked, but only because then the prince got harmed, which I guess just goes to show that I didn't see any chemistry either. So yeah, it was an entirely horrible book. also, the main character was such a horrible person and a pick-me. And I mean, her parents were killed, so I think we can give her some slack. But she was just so annoying, and reading from her perspective, it was so cringe. I don't use that word often because I think the word cringe in itself is somehow cringe, but it was really not enjoyable. And I only finished the book because I didn't have anything else to read. And I guess a bad read is still better than no read at all. In a similar vein, and now we are getting to the books where you will definitely see a theme from me. The theme is female characters that are supposed to be strong characters but are just annoying. Now let me give you some good examples first, because otherwise it sounds like I just hate female characters. I love female characters. I basically only read books with female main characters at this point. Female characters in YA. The Hunger Games, is that what it's called in English? Katniss Everdeen. Fantastic female character. She's strong. She's not a person that will... She's strong, but she isn't someone who doesn't grieve. We see her grieve. Good character. Vin from the Final Empire series, I've talked about that a bunch lately. She's also a good, strong character that grows. We see her grow. That is so important, that we see these characters not being strong from the beginning, but also growing into their story, into their own life. Yennefer and Ciri from the Witcher series, both of these are strong women in their own right in very different ways. Yennefer being a witch that had to overcome huge obstacles in her life and had to develop a sense of self-preservation, but also of protection, that then she also has to remember to destruct at some point, because otherwise she can't develop relationships. Ciri as a former princess who had her life taken away from her and then becomes a witcher, even though she doesn't have the same mutations as a witcher usually does. So these are really good female characters. Some of them were even written by men. In fact, 3 of the 4 that I just told you were written by men, which also is something. Sometimes men have an interesting way to write female characters, looking at you, Stephen King. But in these cases, these were really good. So it is possible to write strong characters, strong female characters, even in YA. Katniss Everdeen is definitely YA. So here are some books where that did not work out. First one, Icebreaker by Hanna Grace. This is an entirely romance story, no fantasy element. We follow a young woman. I think she's in university. Yeah, she's in university. She is an ice skater. And then there's a man who is, I think it's ice hockey player. I think it's an ice hockey player. This was one of the first romances that hit it off in the whole ice skater, ice hockey player realm of books that we now have. I feel like every few years there's a certain sport that people choose and they're just gonna read loads of romances about. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I did like heated rivalry. Anyway, Icebreaker, I did not like. It starts with one of the ice rings being melted down. I think I got this in German, so all bets are off on language here. They're melted down. So then there's only one ice ring left, and they have competitions coming up, the ice skaters as well as the ice hockey players. There's also the issue of the scholarship involved. The male ice hockey player does have a scholarship that is really important. I think he was the one with the scholarship. So if they lose, he's scared of losing the scholarship. And also his father's approval, I think. I think there's also this High School Musical element of the father really wanting something from the child. So all of that wasn't a bad idea. It sounds like a great romance, honestly. I do actually read romances. I'm not opposed to reading a good romance, especially in summer. But this one, it was, first of all, no chemistry. I did not see the chemistry. I didn't think any of the jokes were funny that they did. They were like bantering, but the banter was... It was banter I would have done when I was like 12. It was really childish for some reason, in my opinion. Again, this is all my opinion. I know that Icebreaker does have a huge following, apparently. My sister actually loves it, I think, and also another friend of mine did like it. I thought the bantering was pretty young, considering they were in university. I also, and this is the theme I was talking about, did not like the female character at all. She was... I'm not sure if I would say she was a pick-me. She just... I don't want to say that she was... Am I allowed to say this on YouTube? You know, a huge B. Because that's just mean and kind of misogynistic, so I don't like to use that phrase. But I just didn't understand her problems. She had so many issues that weren't real issues at all. There was no reason to always argue. Not a single one. It was all so unnecessary. The only good thing, honestly, about this book was that they did talk about the mental health problems that can come from huge pressure in sports. There is a specific one that I don't want to mention here because it can be triggering, that the main character has, or we learn that she has it, and she doesn't know in the beginning, or she doesn't realize in the beginning, and it is definitely worsened by her best friend. So we also see kind of a toxic best friendship. I did like those parts, to be fair. Those were fine. That's why I give it 2 stars and not just 1 star, because I think that it touched on really important topics. I just think that touching on an important topic while having fun and bad might not be the moment to do it. This is a serious conversation. And then they go up into the bedroom. Like, why? Also, I really hated the ending. Mostly because it was the most perfect... The world is a beautiful sunflower meadow straight ending. Which is all I'm gonna say about the ending in case anyone does want to read it. I wouldn't recommend reading it, but maybe you just heard everything I said and thought that sounds like something I would like. Then read it, but I really despised it. I read it in its entirety because I told my sister I would. My sister started reading, surprisingly, at 16, and so I tried some books she liked, and I didn't like a single one of the books she liked. She is a heavy romance reader, but a different kind of romance than I usually enjoy, so that doesn't work out. I stopped reading books she recommends me. For that reason. But this was really one of the worst. And also, this book put me in such a reading slump because I didn't want to read anything else anymore. Because I thought this was such a bad book. It could have only gotten better, I guess. But no. Okay, next up, just to keep people entertained that are not actually into YA, let's talk about a classic. This should be a little bit shorter though. It's by F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. I didn't really hate it as much as the books I just talked about previously. It didn't make me as angry, maybe, because the previous books made me kinda angry by how they depicted the relationships and people. This just bored me, honestly. I didn't get it, maybe. I know that there's supposed to be this huge symbolism of the green light and of them doing stuff. But I just thought it was kind of boring. And usually when a plot is boring, I can get by if I like the characters, if I find them interesting, if I find something intriguing, if there's a mystery. There was nothing there for me personally. The characters... I don't need to like them in a way that they need to be nice people. That would be very boring as well. If you already have a plot where not a lot happens, then at least the characters should be morally ambiguous, whatever. Something like that. In this case, there were definitely more grey characters, if that makes sense. I still didn't care for any of them. I do think the best part of the book was the obsession that the Great Gatsby has with Daisy. I think that part was kinda entertaining, honestly. But I also felt like it was going nowhere. It was just, he had this thing inside his head that he wanted to do, and then he threw this party, but that was kind of it. It kind of confused me, honestly. And then I did like the aspect where we see the whole story unfold from Nick's perspective. But then the ending just kinda, I don't know, it was just a very abrupt ending that didn't tie well, or that didn't tie in well with the rest of the story for me. I think it was supposed, this might be entirely, this is how I read it. I think the ending was supposed to show the consequences of unhealthy obsessions. I think it could have been better. Yes, Marty, now say that I think that F. Scott Fitzgerald could have made a better ending. Could have been better. Also, it was 120 pages, I think, or maybe even less. It felt so long. It felt like it took ages to get through this book. And granted, I did read it in my 24-hour reader font that I sometimes like to do. But it didn't really click for me anyway, because usually when I do these long hours of reading, yes, to the end it can get a little bit more exhausting, but usually when a book is good, it won't feel like 120 pages are actually 600 pages. And that's what it felt like for me. I actually do still have my copy of The Great Gatsby. I do think I'm going to keep it, because I did write inside of it. Did I write anything mentionable? Oh yeah, actually, except for the ending. I thought some of it was quite predictable. Like, I wrote in here, this is what I think, and then a few pages later it says, yeah, I told you that. So yeah, I didn't really like most of this book. I think there were some things that I did enjoy. As I said, the obsession itself. I do like books about obsession. I did think that the language was quite good. I enjoy books with a certain language, with language that I don't read as often. I did like that, but all in all, it was just a little bit boring to me. I think because we're already at classics, let's continue with another classic. Here I do want to say, I think I should reread it because my reading taste since then has changed and maybe I would enjoy it now. But when I read 1984 by George Orwell back in, I don't know, when I was 16 or 17, I think I was already 17, I did not enjoy it for a very similar reason as I didn't enjoy The Great Gatsby, which is that it was just extremely boring and very obvious also. I did laugh. Laugh was maybe the strong word. I did like Brave New World, which we had to read for school back then. 1984 I read because a friend recommended it to me. Wasn't my thing. I thought that the way... I did like the whole aspect of what is it called, newspeak, and the dystopian... I do like my dystopian worlds. I do like the depiction of how humanity will enslave itself. I mean, we are in the age of AI. I think it's very relevant to read these stories. I just also thought that the main character was not really... He wasn't really the smartest person around, which probably might have been on purpose, because they're supposed to be in the dark about everything that happened. I didn't like how on the nose it was, I think. It was just a very direct story. It told you exactly what was happening, in my opinion. Again, I think I should reread it. I do remember quite a lot from the scenes, from like mice running around and from the Big Brother. I think I remember books that I didn't like better than the books that I liked. I didn't like the woman at all from the very beginning. There is a woman. I hope I remember the correct book. Maybe I'm mixing something up. There is a woman. I didn't like her at all. I thought she was very two-dimensional. I thought it was a very bad depiction of a woman somehow. And the thing is, I have read some essays by George Orwell. Where do I have them? It should be somewhere on here. I have read some of the essays in the selected essays by George Orwell of the Oxford World Classics. I really love them. They're amazing. I don't know where the camera stopped recording, so, you know. I read only 4 or 5 of the essays in this. I should really read the others. I do want to take my time with it though, and I do want to read them when I'm in a certain state of mind. But obviously I enjoy the rest of his writing. It's just 1984 that I didn't like, because I just thought it was too obvious. He said, he showed this new word and said, this is bad. And you as a reader were there, yeah, obviously it's bad. Tell me something new. So for me personally, I understand why people like it. I just didn't like it. Having gotten those two classics out of the way, let's continue with books popular on the internet. I think this is not as popular. Different books by the same author are more well known. And I want to say I like the internet persona of this author. I watch his videos sometimes. It's John Green. And the book I'm talking about is Looking for Alaska. We had to read this in school, which might have been part of why I didn't like it. Because I think the way we read in school is often not really... It's not really enjoyable, if we're being honest, because you have to do tasks, and I think schools should focus more on teaching people to like reading at this point, because a lot of my fellow students would say they don't like reading because it feels like a task, and we just make it into a new task. Anyway, Looking for Alaska, we are back to the annoying female main characters. I did read the entire book. I know a lot of people in school will just read summaries, which I guess is the smarter way to do it, but I do actually enjoy reading, so I also always just read the entire book. So the plot of Looking for Alaska is that we have this boy whose name I've forgotten. Or I guess he's a man, because he's moving into his dormitory for university. Is it university, or does he go to a boarding school? He might just go to a boarding school for troubled children or something. Anyway, he moves in to some form of educational institution. His parents drop him off. His new roommate, Colonel, we meet. Nice guy. Honestly, I really like Colonel. I would have wanted the book to be about him instead. We also meet, or he meets, a girl called Alaska, who... I think he's intrigued by her in some way. She talks a lot, she has a lot of random knowledge, she reads a lot of books, she seems kinda intelligent. I don't remember if she uses hard drugs or what it was, but she's also kind of a troublemaker. And then one day she just disappears. She's just gone. I don't even remember if we find her or if she's just gone forever. But it wasn't important enough to me to remember if we found her. I was kind of glad she was gone, I think, because she was so annoying. She annoyed me to no ends. I think part of it might have been that she felt like a reflection of a lot of things that I didn't like about myself back then, because I can be a person who talks way too much. I can be someone like a show-off person. And she was all that, but turned up 10 times. And it annoyed me to no ends. I really hated her. I was so happy when she was gone, because we didn't have to see her anymore. I liked Colonel, he was nice. I don't remember a single thing about the guy that is the narrator of the story. No clue who he was, or what he did, or what even the ending was. I think it's supposed to be an emotional story. The only emotion I felt was annoyance. So that is good. I guess it's an emotion. It put me off reading anything else by John Green, and I'm really, really sorry about that, because I do like John Green as an internet persona, as the person we see online. He has a channel called Vlog Brothers. I also really like his brother Hank Green. I do have a book by him that I want to read. I don't think I will ever pick up another John Green book. I mean, these days I also don't read a lot of young adult fiction, or none at all, if we're being honest, because it's just not my genre anymore. But back then I was thinking about reading, The Fault in Our Stars, which is, I think, the classic story to read by John Green, or maybe Paper Towns. Never read them. Looking for Alaska gave me enough material by John Green for the end of my life. It really wasn't my kind of story. Another one that I think this one is still popular on BookTube, and it's why I read it. It's Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Once again, we have a strong female character that I just didn't like. I think in this case she was slightly annoying, but not as bad as some of the others. But the basic idea of Throne of Glass is that there is this young woman who is a professional assassin, who is one of the most feared assassins in the world. And she was captured a while ago, and we do actually see this in one of the short stories, and I did read the short stories as well, didn't like them either. She was captured and she was working in the mines, and then she gets taken by one of the princes to the castle to take part in a competition, and the winner, I think, gets set free. I don't remember why this competition is even in place, what it is for. Because why do they need to put a bunch of assassins against each other and then the winner gets freedom or whatever? Well, there's also then this element of someone manipulating the competition, and obviously there's a romance. Of course there's a romance. It's young adult. Didn't care for the romance, didn't really see the chemistry. I mean, it's not one romance, it's one of the typical triangle relationship things. I did see it with one of the guys, I didn't see it with the other one. So I guess, but that wasn't really my main complaint. My main complaint is that the main character is so stupid. How is she one of the most feared assassins, but fails at the simplest things? And also, if she's been slaving away in a mine, I feel like she should be pretty weak, but for some reason she gets up on her feet pretty quickly, which, fine, I guess it works for the story. But she should be immensely intelligent, and she just isn't. She does so many dumb things. She's also so bad with people. And in my opinion, someone who's good at assassinating should have some basic people skills as well, because I mean, you can just operate out of the darkness, I guess, but wouldn't it make more sense for her to have some people skills? None of it made sense. The entire competition, honestly, wasn't really interesting at all. I'm not someone who reads a lot about competitions though, so maybe it's just not something that I like. But once more, the female main character just was not someone that I wanted to follow. I thought she was really stupid. She was just someone. So many times I was sitting there and thinking, can you please start thinking? I also feel like I was promised something that the book just wasn't. The romance just didn't do anything for me. The scenes where she meets people that she is supposedly interested in, she's just mean. I think she was just pretty mean. And I mean, she is an assassin who is being kept there against her will. But if you want to develop a romance, shouldn't there be some form of chemistry? I know that this is a pretty long series, so maybe the chemistry will come in one of the other books, but I won't read them, so I'll never know. Last book, and in this case we have a book where I don't have an issue with the female character. I do have a little bit of an issue with the main male character. It's Lonely People? No, Normal People. Normal People with Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is an author that is celebrated for literary fiction. I do see the reason why. I do see that her books, or at least the one book that I read by her, have a lot of literary value. I don't like saying that a book has or doesn't have literary value, because that puts books above each other, and I think every book is worth reading or worth existing, even if you yourself don't want to read it. But I do see why people think that Sally Rooney is a good author. It's just that I think I just don't like this specific type of literary fiction because it was dragging on. Normal People talks about a young, well, a boy and then a young man who meets a girl and then later a young woman she is very well off and he is not. His mother works as a cleaning lady for her mother. And they develop a kind of relationship. It's kind of an on-off thing. At the same time, we also see him having relationships, platonic as well as romantic, as well as sexual relationships with other people. We see him going from high school to university, getting scholarships, and we see her doing the same thing. They are always rivals to some degree, because in school they were both the best people, and then even now they tend to compare each other. I think they both study English, if I'm not mistaken, but they kind of not lose sight of each other, but the contact gets less in between because I think they go to different universities. They have different lives. Still, they meet and meet and meet again, and it's kind of a constant in both of their lives. I don't remember the ending at all. I didn't like this book mostly because it felt like a huge will they want they story that was dragging on, but less like slow burn and more like, could you maybe get to it? It took just too long for me. I liked the first half, and in the second half, at some point, I just wanted to put it down and give up. I had already finished the first half and I had liked it, so I did continue on to read the rest of the book. But I have to say, in my opinion, it felt very drawn out. It felt like at some point there was nothing more to say. Everything had been said and it should have ended there. It didn't end there though, and that was what really bothered me, and it took down the rating so much, because I think I was at like a 4, maybe a 3 star, and I think I took it down to a 2 star. I did think that the language was pretty good. I did think that the overall idea of the book was good. It just wasn't executed in a way that I personally would have liked. I don't even think it was executed in a bad way. I just think that this type of literary fiction is not for me. So I will not read another Sally Rooney book, but if you do want to read one of the books on this list, which I don't know why you would want to read a book that someone has just told you they didn't like, but I think the Sally Rooney Normal People is the one that I would recommend the most, just because I think it is executed very well. It's just something that I personally did not enjoy. And with that, which I think this is the most positive note I could have given you, considering there were some books that I really ranted about, because I just didn't like them. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening to me ranting about books. I like ranting. I think it's the most entertaining form of review, if being honest. Though I also think it's important to make sure that you're not getting mean or say something that is actually hurtful, because in the end authors are also people, and these people have put so much work into their books and it takes such a long time to get something published. So I think that all of these authors deserve to have their own books. I just think that I don't need to read them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon.